Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 1440. The topic is nutrition and the title is Staying on Track When You're on the Go. So I have a lot of clients that will have challenge in kind of just managing how they eat and staying on track with calories and protein and timing. And it can be various reasons when they're on the go. Some people have trouble on the weekends, maybe their kids have different sporting events, or you're just, you have unpredictable schedule on the weekend, so it's a little bit harder to eat more consistently. Other people, they might have a lot of reactionary kind of unscheduled events during the week, and that becomes very challenging. So I just wanted to kind of touch on some of the things that I discuss with people on giving tips or suggestions on how you can have more consistency in how you eat, even when your schedule isn't consistent. So a couple of things we look for. I wanted to give kind of 5 tips. Is number 1 is to get ahead of the day. Just get something in your face before you leave the house. Something in your face within the first, say 30, 60 minutes of being awake. Now, if you take some kind of medication in the morning and you need an hour of fasting, then just take something with you. Just make sure you have something pre-made, ready. It can be like a pre-made like protein drink. There's what's called ready RTDs, which are ready to drink things you can buy like off Amazon or so. You can also just take, a container of cashews or almonds or peanuts, whatever. Just take something with you. So one of the quick breakfasts that I use is a bagel sandwich. I'll just toast a bagel, put some lunch meat and a slice of cheese in the middle of it, smush it together, and eat it while I walk out the door. So it can be made in like 2 minutes. I've timed it. So it is ridiculously easy. You just have to make sure you have the foods available. So I use Instacart to help with shopping. We also order some stuff off Amazon as well. But those are easy ways just to get food brought to you if you don't have time to grocery shop. So it adds to a little bit more convenience and way to get food. But that's one of the quick choices I do as well. Also, one of the things I'll do is if I have a little more time in the morning to cook something, I'll make multiples of it. So I'll just make multiple servings. So another meal I do sometimes is biscuits with microwavable sausages inside. And yes, this all sounds maybe crazy compared to what you might be able to think you can eat, but I do eat a lot of calories being my size. But also, you can make quick things out of like maybe like a bagel thin rather than a full bagel if you need less calories. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but one of the things I'll do is I'll make biscuits, like cook like a whole tin of biscuits, which makes 8 of them. I cook up a microwave of sausages. I eat 4 of that as one meal, and then I save the other 4 for a meal later in the day. Another thing I do when I cook some food for Meredith is I'll boil some pasta. We use chickpea pasta for her often, which is like a high protein content pasta. So she needs gluten-free, so that's a good variation for us. And then we mix feta cheese in that with some cut up peppers. And you can make that super fast. It's very easy to make, very quick to make. And you can make, 3, 4, 5, 6 servings at one time. So that's very quick and easy. Something you can do in 20 minutes or less, but get multiple meals out of it. Then you'd be able to take those meals with you throughout the day. So the chickpea pasta meal, for example, doesn't need to be microwaved or anything. You just take it with you and you eat it how it is. She does add, a dressing to it. You can add, whatever kind of flavorings you want, but it's something quick and easy you can make. And then the other thing, like we said, was kind of like an RTD, ready to drink kind of thing. You can do protein shake. Just the idea is to get something in you early. So that kind of feeds into our second tip is when you think of how to eat, quote unquote properly, or how to eat right when you're on the go, is to remember to eat early, eat often, and eat to match. So what this means is we want to eat early, like try to eat what you need before you need it. The earlier in the day you eat, the less you then have to pile in at the end of the day, which helps just kind of lower body fat percentage. It helps improve energy throughout the day. It decreases cravings and likelihood to overeat actually at night, and it helps to kind of mitigate damage and kind of like use that the body experiences throughout the day. While you're eating during the day, the body can work on recovery all day. Whereas if you're under eating during the day, you eat everything at night, the body has to try to hurry up and make up for everything recovery wise by the next day, and it doesn't always do that. So eating early is very beneficial. Eating often is also beneficial. It helps fuel kind of activity and energy for the day. It decreases kind of like cravings again at the end of the day. So that's very helpful. And then eat to match just means if you're moving around more, eat more. If you're moving around less, eat less. And then just having that in your mind is helpful just to kind of get you a better balance of calories compared to activity level. So those are kind of the first like 2 tips, is to get ahead of the day and then to think of eating early, eating often, and eating to match. The third tip is to don't limit your choices. Too often when people are struggling to get in, enough food, when they're busy, they over restrict what they feel like is good food. So it's like, well, I could eat this, but that's not on my plan, so I just won't eat. Oh, that's way worse. It's way worse to skip food than it is to eat maybe the right amount of calories of a different food than you're used to. So we talk about this in podcast 1272. So if you want to check that out, it's a nutrition podcast titled What Matters Less Than You Think. So what you eat matters less than the fact that you eat. So you need to eat. You need to have some calories in you to help maintain metabolism and to prevent the body from starting to try to fight fat loss and try to actually create new fat, like by making like fat storage. So it's very important to make sure you get the calories in that you need. We don't want to overeat, that's for sure, but you still want to make sure you eat what you should. So by not worrying about the what of what you eat and just eating what you have available, but keeping it within like portion control, keep it within the calories that you need, that's okay. Like that's going to help you get better progress on your goals than to just totally miss a meal. So if you normally have chicken and rice for lunch, but all that's available is pizza, we'll just have a slice or two, whatever calorie-wise would match the chicken and rice you eat, and then that's good. That's fine. No worries. Is that going to have, more fat than the chicken and rice meal would? Sure. Is it going to have less protein than the chicken and rice meal? Probably. But it's better to have calories that have some fat and low protein than to have no calories that has no protein. So it is better to eat what you have available than to just skip eating. The next tip, the fourth tip, is to just kind of consider is what is going to give you protein. In your meals, we have a podcast number 861. It's actually a really good podcast. I don't know if I talk about it too often, but it's a good one to check out. So it's podcast 861. It's a nutrition podcast titled Meal Comparisons, What Makes a Good Meal Good. So in that podcast, I actually discuss about different meals that clients eat, and I just say is this a good meal, is this not a good meal, and why? And understanding that is super helpful for then when you have to pick, foods that are available to you. Maybe they're new foods, they're not ones you normally eat, but so how do you put together a good meal? So podcast 861 would be a really good one to check out and kind of learning how to do that. But being protein conscious, being aware of what's going to give you protein in your meals, and that is explained in that podcast, by the way. What are protein-based foods and how do you know how much and blah, blah, blah. But knowing that and paying attention to that is very helpful, because when we eat randomly, we do tend to, human beings in general, tend to favor foods that are low in protein and more so higher in carbohydrates and fats. They just tend to taste better to us. So it's good to be mindful of protein amounts when you're eating kind of haphazardly throughout the day. It is often that people will be under their protein numbers. The fifth tip is to finish strong. So just have something before you go to bed. If you feel like you've missed some food, if you feel like you've undereaten, don't go to bed on an empty stomach. Eat some food. Are you worried what if it makes me fat? Well, if you've underate for the day, you would actually be more fat if you don't eat, because then your body's going to wake up the next day super starved, severely underfed, and it's going to try to save any excess that you eat the entire next day. So if you need to eat food right before you go to bed just to get to the calories you would normally have, that will not negatively impact fat loss or fat storage. Actually, you would be more negatively impacted by missing the meal. So finish strong. Eat some food or drink a protein shake or something right before bed. Especially if you feel like you're low in protein, getting a protein shake in before bed. Just buying some whey protein powder and drinking that before you go to bed. It really helps to kind of work towards that recovery and repair from the stress of the day, so you don't start the next day behind and all of a sudden you have a clicking in your knee and an annoying thing in your elbow. The body just kind of feels achy and beat up and you just feel kind of tired for the day. If you have some protein before you go to bed, that'll help mitigate a lot of those feelings. So those are 5 good tips. Is like, get ahead of the day, eat early, eat often, eat to match, don't limit your choices, consider what's giving you protein in your meal, and then to finish strong. So I think what helps a lot when I talk to clients is just to know what matters. It doesn't matter what you eat, it just matters that you ate. Now, that's not maybe true all the time, every day. Is pizza instead of chicken and rice a good meal every day? A good meal substitution? No, probably not, because it is going to have too many calories to how much protein is in there. The protein to calorie ratio isn't very good. So you might have a harder time controlling your calories, but still getting in the protein you need if you were to eat pizza for lunch every day. But if it's the choice between I eat pizza for lunch or I don't eat at all, pizza is always the better choice. Now that would go, of course, with any food. Just eating anything rather than skipping the meal is better. So knowing what matters helps a lot, because then you know if the day was successful. So you might think, well, I had pizza for lunch, the day's ruined. No, not even remotely close. That has zero bearing. What ruined is if we miss our calories or we miss our protein. And if you do it for one day, it's not the end of the world either. So what we're trying to do over time is just to make a collective group of better choices over, the span of weeks and months. That's kind of the big thing. So if you mess up a meal, if you mess up a day, it's not the end of the world. But to kind of get some perspective as to how do I know if it's a good day or not? One of the things I tell clients is to make sure you hit your minimums. So what is a minimum? A minimum is typically calories. If you kind of track your calories, know what the lowest number your normal tracking is. So if you're supposed to eat between, say, 2,400 and 2,800, well, then your minimum is 24. So at least try to get to 24. If you don't know what your numbers are, you can kind of aim for body weight times 11. So whatever you weigh, just multiply that by 11, and that would be a good kind of like bottom line, baseline number of calories that you could aim for. So if you weigh 160 pounds, you multiply that by 11, that's 1,760 calories. So aim for somewhere around there. If it's 1,760 and you only eat 1,700, that's not the end of the world either, But to give you a ballpark or something to shoot for, calories, body weight times 11 is a good kind of minimum goal. And then for protein, body weight times 0.6. So you would just multiply your body weight times 0.6, and that would kind of give you the low end of how much protein. So again, if you weighed 160 pounds times 0.6 equals 96. So you would aim for 96 grams of protein as kind of like your baseline minimum. So those give you some targets. So it's helpful to know, okay, if I have to make a good day out of foods that I don't normally eat in a schedule I don't normally follow, how do I do that? Well, like we said, get ahead of the day. Eat something early before you start your day. Then eat early throughout the day and eat as often as you can. Then don't limit your choices. Just eat whatever you have. It's much better than eating nothing. Pay attention to protein. Try to get some foods that help you get some protein in there. And again, podcast 861 will tell you more about that. And then finish strong. Make sure you go to bed with some protein in your belly or a little bit of food if you feel like you're behind in your calories. So these are general tips that I use with clients, and I usually give them more specific examples to their food selections and their preferences, on how they can make these tips work for them. That's what the nutrition coaching service does, is I personalize all of this. So we go through these things, and I tell them exactly based on the foods they eat, the preferences they have, what food sources or food storage availability they have in their life. So we go through this and we kind of apply it on an individual basis. So it is very helpful. We did restart the $100 a month nutrition coaching service. So where I do kind of take you through this and kind of set you this up for yourself, and we talk about how to basically eat healthy on your schedule, your preferences, your needs, all that stuff. So if you are interested in some guided help, reach out. Our email is brutalironjim@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to help you. All of our services, they don't have any contracts, so we would just work together for a month, 2, 3, whatever length that you feel you need to feel educated and understand it all, and then you can take it and run with it for the rest of your life. So it's a pretty awesome service. So if you're interested, again, just email me, brutalironjim@gmail.com. But I hope that today's podcast gives you some tips that you can apply and help you stay better on track when you're on the go, and then also just kind of know, if you are on track or not. So know if you're messing things up or not, and most often people aren't. You're not, it's not the end of the world. You're doing okay. Hopefully these tips will just help you do a little better. Well, if you like today's podcast or the podcast in general, please consider sharing the podcast. The more people we share the podcast with, the more people we can help. You can share it on social media or a conversation with a friend. Just if you share it, I appreciate it that you share it, and I'm sure they will as well. Thank you to the patrons of the podcast, the people who financially support the podcast. The podcast is well over $1,000 a year for hosting costs. I give an hour to it every single day, and we want to keep it for free. So I truly appreciate the donations to help cover some of those costs. If you do want to donate, you can do it at our website, www.brutalironjim.com. We have an option there for a one-time donation, monthly donation, yearly donation. Even $5 a month, goes a long way. So I appreciate everybody who does support the podcast. We all appreciate you. So that way we have something to listen to. Also, if you like the information we share in our podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Jim. If you have any questions, feedback, suggestions, anything you want to know, let us know at our email, brutalironjim@gmail.com. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.